Most of them are dead. And but you'll enjoy hearing them. They were great teachers. Matthew 16 and 18. Now, this is the foundation of the Catholic Church. If you listen to the church fathers and the history of the Catholic Church, they say that they trace themselves all the way back to the Apostle Peter. And they have a continuous succession of popes all the way back. That Peter was their post-pope. But we're going to look at this in a different way tonight. I believe the way it was actually given. And the book of Ephesians is a church letter. The book of Ephesians is not the book of Ephesians. All right? The book of Ephesians is not the book of Ephesians. Now that sounds crazy. But if you look in your English translation, and if you'll see the word in emphasis there, it is not in the original language. The book of Ephesians was a circular or a general epistle to all the churches. It became known as the Ephesian letter because most of the copies of it were made at Ephesus and sent out from Ephesus. But it is a general church epistle. And we just finished the book of Colossians, which is a tremendous study of the person of Jesus Christ. That he is deity, he is God deity, that he is God, as it says in several different places. It leaves no doubt by any means, once you study the book of Colossians, that Jesus is Jehovah God in the Old Testament. He was beautiful. There were several epistles written close together. The book of Colossians, the book of Ephesians, and the book of Philemon were written and sent out at the same time. The book of Colossians, the center of that book is Christ. Philemon was basically a personal letter to Philemon about Onesimus, which was a slave that had run away. And he was giving him his freedom, basically. And there is some very good teaching in the book of Philemon. The book of Ephesians, if we want to call it that, the general epistle known as Ephesians letter, is about Jesus and his church. All right? Well, before we can really get into that, we need to go back in Christ's time. Many Baptists today are not really Baptists, they're more Protestant than they are Baptists. My background is real Baptist, and it goes way back. John A. Broadus and A.T. Robertson, they built one of the first seminaries in Baptist works. Ben Marcus Bogart was one of my grandfather teachers. He built a tremendous seminary in Little Rock, Arkansas. The word Southern Baptist, they were at one time there were Baptists, simple Baptists. Okay. When the war between the states, the Civil War started, some of them, the Baptists went northern, and by the way, they were the liberal Baptists. And then a great number of them became known as Southern Baptists. Many of them were just Orthodox missionary Baptists. And then some, what they call primitive Baptists. I'm from the Orthodox Baptist end of it. But the Southern Baptists had a lot of effect on it. Some of Baptist history is good and some of it isn't sometimes. I'll tell you very plainly. Southern Baptist churches at one time, every one of them had Ku Klux Klan in them. Simple as that. And Mason groups. And the Mason and the Ku Klux Klan were closely related. So the way I was educated as a real super right-wing seminary. Every one of them stood behind the KKK, and many of them were Masonic. All right, and but you have to take and just swallow some of that, and that history isn't all good about it. Different times and different ages. Baptists today are not the way they were 50 years ago. They were real Baptists back then. We have gone more liberal now than what they did. Baptists today are more Protestant than they are Baptists. In church history, I've handed you out a little thing, 11 since 11, of the New Testament church. It chases churches back through the ages. Matthew 16 and 18 is a beautiful verse in the Bible. You can't understand the book of Ephesians unless you understand it. Most people start the churches on the day of Pentecost. The Lord's church comes from a Greek word called ecclesia. Ecclesia, and it comes from ek and kaleo. All right, ek means what? How many of you have ever seen an exit sign? An exit. All right, exit sign. It means out of it. Ek means out of. It comes from Greek. And kaleo, we get our word call from that word. So it should be very familiar to. One's called out. Okay? Now, in Matthew, the 4th chapter, we find out Jesus, he begins to call out his disciples. Well, the disciples are what made up his church. So he began to call out his church in Matthew, the 4th chapter. Time we get to Matthew, the 16th chapter, there's quite a dissertation there. He had sent his church out on a limited commission already. What were some of the things that they were doing already at that time? What was this early church doing already?
Baptizing.
They were baptizing. The Lord gave them the authority to baptize. And now every one of the first church members of that church were what? They were baptized by a person. His name was John. All right, they had John's baptism. But then, from that period of time on, then that church began to baptize. And Jesus sent them out and prior to Matthew, the 16th chapter, and they went out and they did some astounding things. They were healing the sick. Why were they healing the sick? Why did these church members heal the sick? Why? Did God have mercy upon those who were sick? What was it? What was the reason? What was the reason for miracles altogether?
I think it was a witness to the people that when they saw the miraculous power of God working through these men, to identify them as men of God.
That's right. That's the purpose. It was an identifier. Now, the reason why Jesus performed miracles was that he was the Messiah. And the Old Testament prophesied that he would perform miracles, and the one miracle that only the Messiah would perform. What was that?
Heal the blind.
Heal the blind. He would heal the blind. No other man ever healed the blind. Now, in the Old Testament, people had been even raised from the dead, hadn't they? But no one had ever healed blind men. And Jesus did that. Now, that was specifically a messianic credential. All right? Now, they had gone out and done this. And then when they came back, the disciples, the early little church, was so excited. Look what we did, Jesus. And he said, don't worry about that. What? Don't glory in that, but trust that your names have been written in heaven. All right? And he asked them some questions. He said, who do they say that I am? Who do they say that I am? And in Matthew the 16th chapter, you have some of the things that they said. All right? And someone read that for me in have you got that, Brother Dave? What kind of translation you have?
King James.
King James? Well, we'll put up with that for now. Episcopalian translation.
16 and 13, is that where you want me to start?
Well, yeah, somewhere around there.
When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, saying, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets.
Okay, now go back there a little. King James gets a little mixed up. They didn't quite get the names right. He said some of them say that you're Isaiah. Some of them say you're Elijah. All right? Now, Elijah was the forerunner of the Messiah, wasn't he? He was supposed to be. Elijah was supposed to be the forerunner of the Messiah. So they say, some say you're Elijah, some say you're Isaiah, and some say you're John the Baptist. Now, why did they say that he was John the Baptist? Why did they accuse him of being John the Baptist?
Because he was baptizing?
Well, John had been killed. John had been killed, and they thought that God raised him up because that everybody accepted John the Baptist as a prophet, a real prophet of God. In other words, nobody could question his prophecy, okay? Because they knew that he was a prophet of God. Now, he didn't mince words either, boy. I mean, he told them all. Well, go on, brother.
And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven.
All right. Now let's go back and look at that in Greek, Matthew 16 and 18. The Lord said to Peter, But I say to you, all right, to Peter, that you are Petros. Now, what is Petros? Peter had some names, didn't he? He had 3 names that we know of. Huh?
The
rock.
It means stone. Stone. Cephas means what, brother? Cephas. Stone. 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 It means stone. All right, it means stone. It's not a big rock, by the way. It's a stone. Petros, that's the masculine gender, by the way. Now, the feminine gender of that is a large stone.
Really?
Yes. Feminine gender.
Yeah, we better not go there.
All right. Okay. Women have always been stronger than men. They live longer. They're tougher. Everything. But it's not masculine and feminine we're talking about there. So he said, you are Peter. You are a stone. Cephas, his name was also Simon. Simon Peter. What does Simon mean? What does Simon mean? One who hears. That's what it means, one who hears. All right, Simon. One who hears, one who listens. Okay? Now, he only listens, but he had a loud mouth a lot of times, didn't he? All right. Peter was a problem child sometimes. But I say, now weak adversity conjunction day there, but I say to you that you are Petros. You are a little stone. But we have a stronger adversity conjunction here. That word kai there, you can look that up on page 208, and it's like a strong adversity conjunction here. But you are a little stone. But upon this, haute, the foundation, gigantic foundation. All right? Upon this gigantic foundation, I shall be building, it's oiko domese, domeso, okay? Oiko means house, and dome, we get our word dome. It means doming up. I shall be building, doming up, our home building of me, tain ecclesion, all right? The church. But upon this great foundation stone, I shall be building of me the ecclesia, the ones called out. Now, Jesus used a term that was real old. This ecclesia, it's a real old term. It's something that had been used. The Greeks and the Romans knew what this term meant. Every town in the Roman Empire and in the original Greek Empire had an ecclesia in it. How many of you knew that? Every one of them had an ecclesia. You knew that. All right? Every town had an ecclesia in it.
From you.
Yes. And that ecclesia, the original Greek Empire was basically, we get a lot of our democratic ideas from a democracy. What does the word democracy mean? It means rule by the people, demos, that's people, all right? Democracy, people that rule themselves. Now, an ecclesia, every town had an ecclesia in it. An ecclesia was a subpoenaed, called out group of people elected by that town that told those people in this local vicinity here, the great big empire up here now, the Roman Empire or the Greek Empire originally, they need to have $500 in taxes. Now, we need to split this up in these families, and everybody will pay a certain amount of the taxes. They also need a certain amount of grain for their war efforts and everything. We also need to draft about 30 people in this family. So we got to figure out who are the most qualified people that we can do this. Well, this ecclesia acted under the great empire, but it was a local, little independent group that took care of their own business. I just think Jesus used an old term, and he's going to coin this term in an ecclesiastical sense. Even our word ecclesiastical sense comes from ecclesia, which means church. He's going to give the keys to this church. Now, Peter would die. We don't believe in the succession of apostles. The Catholic Church believes in the succession of apostles because they had what they call continuous revelation, and they don't really depend upon the Word of God as the Word of God, do they? They depend on the dogmas that are handed down by the apostles or the popes in different times. That early church believed in the Word of God is inspired and God-breathed, okay? And these individuals that were doing these miracles were to make up that assembly. Now they had a special group of those apostles. All right? Apostles. What does an apostle mean? It comes right out of Greek. Apostello is the Greek word. Apostolos is the Greek word. What does apostello mean? Apo means what? Away from, and stello means to send out. Okay? Are you learning a little Greek? Okay? Apostello, it means to send out with authority. Okay? Now, why did the people believe the apostles when they went to different places and when they received the revelation from God? Why did they believe them?
The miracles.
Because of the great miracles that confirmed the Word of God. Okay? Once they received the Word of God, then the miracles ceased for themselves. It says in the book of Corinthians, "But I say unto you that you are a little stone, but upon this gigantic foundation, this Petra," all right, see that word Petra there? If you've got a Greek translation, you'll see it's a different word. On this gigantic rock. And who was Jesus referring to? Himself. Deuteronomy 18:26. Who's got an Old Testament? Deuteronomy 18:26. What was the Lord always called? What was Jehovah always called in the Old Testament? So many times. We're going to find out. Deuteronomy 18:26, Psalm 22, verse 36, Deuteronomy 23 and verse 2. All right, let's look at some of those if you have some of those. Now, Brother Jerry can quote them in Hebrew for us.
23:2.
Psalm, Deuteronomy 23:2 and Deuteronomy 18:26 and Psalm 22 and verse 36. Who has one of those? Yes, young lady. What is your name, by the way, again?
Karen.
Karen? You'll have to tell me that 1,001 times. But I will try to remember it. All right?
No one born of a forbidden marriage, nor of any of his descendants, may enter the assembly of the Lord, even down to the 10th generation. Wait.
Here we go.
Is that 23?
18, 26?
23? Deuteronomy 23?
No.
No? Oh.
No, 23 and verse 2. Deuteronomy 23 and verse 2.
That was it.
That was it? How about 18 and verse 26?
There's no 26.
Why did I do this?
Probably flipping up.
Oh, I know it's back there someplace.
Well, while we're finding, can I ask you a question about Petra?
Yes.
Would that be a generic term in Greek for rock, just like we say cement in general? We just say a cement chair, which refers just to a specific thing. But if we say cement in general, or we say a rock, you know, you can hold in your hand as a rock.
Yes.
But if we say rock in general, it refers to
Well, it would be lethos, stone that you can throw. Petros, a stone that you can throw. Petra, big rock.
So, wait, big rock or generically rock in general?
Foundation. Okay, a foundation stone. Jesus was called the rock. Psalm 22 and verse 36. Is there such a thing as that?
Psalm 20. What did you say?
Psalm 22.
22.
Yes.
Verse 6.
Yes. 22, 36.
Oh, 36.
No. No.
I'm not reading my writing correctly, I guess. I'm going to look this up again. I have to turn my Bible right side up. Now, if I can see it, I know I have it written down here. All right. Daniel 2:34, Deuteronomy 32. I was dyslexic when I did that.
Daniel what?
Daniel 2:34.
Deuteronomy 32.
2, 3, and 4.
3 and 4.
Mhm.
I will proclaim the name of the Lord. Oh, praise the greatness of our God. He is the rock. His works are perfect, and his ways are just. Faithful God, who does no wrong, upright and just is he.
Okay. Daniel 2:34. And Isaiah 44 and verse 8. Boy, how did I get? I must have just
Maybe your glasses were uncrooked like mine is.
what happened?
Isaiah 44:8.
Yes.
Do not tremble, do not be afraid. Did I not proclaim this and foretell it long ago? You are my witness. Is there any God besides me? No, there is no other rock. I know not one.
All right. Now, that's the old witnesses' little bouncing point right there. Who's it saying is a rock there? Jehovah is a rock. All right. And there is no God besides him either, by the way. He didn't create another God. There is no God but him. Those are some. Judges 16 and verse 26, and Isaiah 28 and verse 6. That is. Isaiah 28, 16.
What was the Judges?
Judges 16, 26.
Isaiah 28:16. So this is what the sovereign Lord says. See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation, and the one who trusts will never be dismayed.
All right, who did Jesus say the builders rejected?
The stone that the builders rejected was Jesus.
Oh, it was Jesus that was the cornerstone, by the way. By the way, let me tell you this. The word for carpenter is the same word for stonemason. Jesus was probably not a carpenter. He was probably a stonemason. All right? He used stonemason terms so many times, they were building terms. And the carpenters basically just made little trinkets, chairs, and stuff like that in that time. But he was probably a stonemason. All right?
What is the Greek word for that?
We get the word technical from it. Okay? Tektos. All right? Technical. And this is one of the terms. Now, the cornerstone was a stone that was taken out, and it had to be polished, and it had to be inspected for no cracks or anything, because the building actually set upon that. All right? Now, Jesus is building, he uses a building term, oikodome, okay? Or oikodomeo, to build up, to dome up, to build. And of course, the buildings back now, if you go in the Middle East, all over there, what are most of the buildings made out of, Brother Jerry? You've been all over that country. Stone, marble. Made out of marble and stone and cement and rock, okay? You don't see very many made out of wood at all, okay? The only thing you'll find, and not even a lot of that, the building beams, about the only thing that's wood, but most of those are put together and domed up, like it says, oikodomeo here. All right, I'll be building up the church in me, and it says, and the gates, hule, the gates of Hadu, the gates of Hades, the gates of the unseen world, it says. Not, they shall wrestle her down. Not, they shall wrestle her down. This is his church, the feminine. All right? Now we have a feminine word. Now we have the foundation. And that foundation that the church is built upon is Christ. In the 18th chapter, he gives church discipline to that church. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Turn there for just a few moments. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Who has that? You got that, Brother Harry?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age.
All right. Now, that is addressed to his church. Okay? And he's, by the way, there's a very terrible mistranslation in the first part of that. The command is not to go ye therefore. That was a very bad translation. It says, after you are having been